Years for you to be inheritance.
You're pretty much funny. You're very popular.
I'm sure there are allowance. I think there's a difference.
Oh, please, I may need you to, you want to sit here? Because I'm going to probably follow Father a bit.
I'll sit there with you. Get up.
Okay.
Hello, how are you? It's good to go. I didn't know that.
Nice to see you too. So you guys were, where were you? Where were you guys? Did you come together?
Yes. Father and I?
Yeah. Oh. No, I'm just, we were going to start at 6:30.
Like this.
Class. Or, you forgot to say. Because it wanted to change, because nobody wanted to do the sharing first.
I went and saw it.
Can you tell him for next, well, for September? We'll make sure he knows.
Yeah, remember? We went before, we went and saw it. Oh, I did.
Oh, that's what time you have to leave.
That's right, because that's the
Well, how long does it take you?
It's already full of
Well, there's one house, they show the footage, half the house fell off, and it just floated down the river, and then the whole just went off the foundation, and it was like, I would call it a mansion. It was like a big house. There is nothing, no foundation,
Sorry,
nothing.
they can see him, they know he's there.
Insurance.
22
No homeowners. One's FEMA and the
And it does in here, plus us.
I'm going to make a little announcement too.
Okay, well, it's right by Father. I'll have to cover it
He
up.
has a 23-year mortgage, and he doesn't have good clothes. He doesn't have clothes off his back. He didn't get anything out of his life.
Oh, all right.
So good morning,
In case people leave us early.
all the footage. Yeah. But they did it in pieces, like the top fell off and floated, and then the house just... I mean, it's just, it's
Iowa was really bad too. A friend called from Cedar Rapids and said, pray for us because it's really bad.
And Indiana.
All around us.
Did you see that on Good Morning America with the house in the Dallas? They had a family, had 3 kids, and for somehow they had the footage. The top part was a big mansion, it was a big house. The half of it fell off, and then the roof was upside down, floating down the river, and the whole house just slipped off. There was no foundation left, nothing. They not only have flood insurance, and he has a 23-year mortgage, and that's his house. He doesn't have it, it's not his summer home.
His property's gone too.
Yes, everything's all, there's no foundation, nothing.
See, it used to be a house on the lake, and the lake's starting to rise.
Right.
It's starting to warm in the road.
It went around the dam, the water went around the dam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The beginners.
Friends from New Orleans, she's saying like, Midwest is a flooding area. She thinks of her place as a flooding area.
Exactly.
Really? So it's almost just like,
Yeah.
or what's the other one? There's a new one too.
All the lakes.
But actually, it's the top of the mortgage. He didn't get any clothes. He just said he got a couple pieces of clothing. They didn't get their pictures out because they were putting stuff on the second level.
And I remember
just got out.
based entirely on bookings.
But they couldn't get the flood insurance because FEMA, and I don't know if it was the developer or the local government or somebody. It was FEMA and someone else couldn't reconcile it, so they just didn't get flood.
I'm not exactly Shakespeare.
It's weird. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's a British home, so I mean, it's not like New Orleans. The footprint's a lot smaller.
And that drain is filling the
know.
house during the summer. And so everybody's canceling all their reservations.
Oh, for the hotels?
I've heard
Yeah.
there's something called catastrophic insurance.
It's like
I'm sure.
catastrophe insurance for like when your whole world
Blows up.
I heard there's something called
There
that.
is. But all that stuff is expensive. I think people like, you know. Still, that's still obligated for that mortgage.
That's just the room noise there.
Yeah, it's a really sensitive microphone. So if everybody was quiet and somebody was speaking in the far back, you'd be able to hear them. Because the battery, what the battery does is it increases the gain on the microphone. So basically it picks up the loudest noise, the loudest sound is what it will.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
You just do
But
like
at least they'll have good sound.
And
And so here I have another one. these things. I wanted to make sure that I gave you at least one that worked, and I wasn't sure. I'm going to take this back, but anyway.
You just unscrew.
You just unscrew it like this.
They don't want you to know until they.
The battery's
Are you
there,
doing
They
it
had
three
three
way?
hurricanes like go through.
and it's just there.
Just like this. And then
And then she was like, saying that there were storm shutters.
The numbers on the back of it. PX 70.
95 degrees out. You know, we're
So you
going
just put it in,
Boca Raton. It's like,
you know, plus side on the bottom, and the negative on the top. So you put that baby in. And just make sure you turn it off when you're not right there.
when I lived in California.
Keep it off and your battery will last a while. I mean, that battery could last a long time, but I would have a backup.
Well, you get more.
Yeah.
You get more.
So it's like a little.
Well, no, I can say that's a fire in San Diego, that was not localized.
But
We're doing a
anyway,
beach.
I
My
did it
cousin was
because
one bridge away.
I was.
And I get so annoyed. I'm like, where is it? She's like, one
So.
bridge away. I'm like, one bridge away. That's crazy.
It's 17 last time. So, got 5 more.
You're like 50 miles away from the
Yeah. It's got
Dust and ashes falling. I have like, it smells like it's really good.
And a lot of people that didn't sign in.
Fireplace are always like this wonderful experience as you choke and cough.
One thinks it starts at 7.
Does that may cause your
Might be.
Oh, like you're saying.
Father? Hi. Whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, we'll start the prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. O Heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of truth, you are everywhere present and fill all things. Treasure of blessings and giver of life, come and dwell within us. Cleanse us of all stain, save our souls, O gracious one. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women.
Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Well, I risked losing my guy card. And I risked being seen by a parishioner. But I risked it nonetheless, both those things. And Sister Elena, you'll appreciate this. I went to see, for the cause, Sex in the City. Went to the latest showing during the week, slithered in. I took 2 ladies in the parish with me as cover. It looked like I was taking them out for treating them, Went undercover, took a notepad with me, slithered into the theater, looked around, make sure there were no guys there first. There was nobody there. We were the only ones there. But just before the movie started, sure enough, one of my parishioners walks in. So why did I see it? Well, I just got done taping my program, A Body of Truth, which is on CatholicRadioInternational.com, and it was on the movie. Not so much the movie itself, but just as Sister Helena is fond of doing, so am I, you look at things in our culture, especially art, media, things that influence, inform us, and we inform them, and to see where the principles that we talk about here in this course, where they exist, and or at the same time where they do not exist. And so I went to see it I call it spying on the enemy. Because there was a big hullabaloo about it, something like that, and I had read some reviews and heard some things, so I thought it'd be good for the cause, So I did. I went to see it, and I just did kind of a whole show on it. But it is kind of relevant to our topic, because, have you seen it? We see it coming up. What'd you hear?
At the end of the table. And so they would go straight.
I thought it was entertaining, but I don't
it, but we'll see what I feel about.
Yeah, me too, yeah. It was interesting because, first of all, it has very, I feel like Forrest Gump. That was the most sexually explicit scenes I've ever seen as a priest. Yeah, really, and they had some pretty explicit scenes. They were short, fortunately, but they were explicit. And they were, but again, they were telling as well. They were telling as well about basically this movie, like most art today that reflects our culture. You could see in this that when people lived the theology of the body, as they grew into that, not knowing that's what it was, but as they grew into, as their characters sort of developed in the movie, they were happier. They were more fulfilled. To the degree that they did not live it, did not understand it, didn't have this awareness, this view of the person and of human sexuality, they were unhappy. They didn't really know all the time exactly what it is they look for, their deepest desire, and so they didn't know where to look for it. But that's the whole beauty of the theology of the body. It's the whole point of this. All this is about knowing the why behind our deepest desires, and how then to look for the fulfillment of those deepest desires in the most honest avenues, honest ways. So, with that in mind, it's amazing. It just works every time. You see it everywhere. Once you put on our sacramental liturgical worldview glasses, our theology body glasses, you just see life correctly. You see it differently. You see it everywhere. You see where people are missing it. You see where they've got it, even though they don't realize it. But it profoundly changes your vision, as it should, as it's supposed to. So I guess we're going to continue with the text, this weighty and dense text. You've been trying to plow through it. Okay, we're going to start, I guess, on page 178 and try to get to the end, to chapter 2. I think that was what our goal was today, right? Okay. First of all, does anybody have any questions on things so far, or any comments or questions on it? See, what I like to do is, Sister Elena had a very good idea in this course of just getting right, plowing through the text, just walking through the text.
I'm responsible for us having to read this text.
At the same time, I like the text is sometimes, someone gave this analogy for me, the text is like the melody, and I sometimes like to add some harmony, so that you see that what's here, which seems very heady and weighty and dense and philosophical, is immediately applicable, immediately life-transforming. This is the most life-transforming thing to come along in a long, long time. But remember, what it is not new. But it's a new look at old things, at tried and true things, at the truth about being human. That's why he even says, John Paul II starts out the theology of the body by pointing to how Christ answered a question by saying, go back to the beginning. You know, he said to the Pharisees, it was not this way at the beginning. Go back to the beginning and re-look at the oldest things, the most primordial things, the most foundational things. We now look at them now in a new way. And that's really what the theology of the body is looking at old things meaning principles of life, of being human, and what the church is all about, has always been about, what the scriptures has been about, what the whole word of creation is about, what God's relationship to us is about, all that. Theology of the body is simply, once again, turning our gaze to those things and looking at them anew. The reason why this is sometimes so dense and complicated is part of it's how it's John Paul II himself, because he was a phenomenologist, and that's how they look at things, very so philosophically in a kind of a spiral fashion. But it also, he wanted it to be very foolproof. He wanted it to be really a complete spiraling through these principles, these age-old principles, so that there's no way to refute it in a sense. There's nothing left to be said, as it were. And that's the key. That's the trick. It's about being honest to what something is. Like we said before, as Sister said, honest to the coffee cup. This is a coffee cup, right? It says, put coffee in me and drink. And I can come to that conclusion definitively. There's nothing left to be said about it if, in fact, I experience, penetrate the mystery of this particular item completely and honestly. Until there's nothing left to really be experienced, and then I can come to the objective truth that yes, this is and can only be, in all honesty, a coffee cup. Now I know how to interface with it honestly. Okay, is that easy? Okay, now everything is like that. The whole created order is like that. The stars in the sky, the grass, the plants, the trees, and above all, the human person. What is the human person? And especially, what are we, who are we as gendered persons? Understand that fully, honestly, and now then interface with that honestly. That's the key. That's all this is about. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so we're going to look at now this last section. We'll try to get through it in the first part, which is called Man in the Dimension of Gift, the spousal meaning of the body. There's a couple really salient quotes in here that probably you should memorize. It's your assignment. Memorize them. So we'll look at some of the text, some of the... I just want to look at the bottom. I want you to look at the footnote on 178. Because he starts talking about anthropology. Okay, the footnote, number 23. The concept of adequate anthropology has been explained in the text itself as an understanding and interpretation of man in what is essentially human. The concept determines the principle of reduction, which is proper to the philosophy of man. It indicates the limits of this principle and indirectly excludes the possibility of going beyond this limit. Adequate anthropology relies on essentially human experience. It is opposed to reductionism of the naturalistic kind, which often goes hand in hand with the theory of evolution about man's beginnings. Okay, translated. See, this theology body is an adequate anthropology. In other words, anthropology means the meaning of what is a human being. And he's saying that it has to do with, the key is, it's about what is particularly human, not just what is a living creature, how are we like animals. It's how are we as humans, the human person, different. And that vision of the human person is what's key to understanding everything, especially the church's moral teaching. Because remember, this theology body was a response to, in large part, a response to Paul VI's Humanae Vitae that said, in order to understand the church's teaching on contraception, you would need a total vision of man. And that's what John Paul II tried to present here. An adequate anthropology. In other words, how do you see the human person? What is the human person really? Once you understand that, you understand all the morality, all the church's teaching. Okay, on the next page, on page 179, the second paragraph. We should now turn anew to those fundamental words that Christ used, that is, to the word created and to the subject, creator. Introducing into the considerations carried out so far a new dimension, a new criterion of understanding and of interpretation that we will call hermeneutics of the gift. Now that word gift, we believe, is John Paul II's favorite word. I think it should become our favorite word too. The dimension of gifts is decisive for the essential truth and depth of the meaning of original solitude, unity, and nakedness. It stands also at the very heart of the mystery of creation, which allows us to build the theology body from the beginning, but at the same time demands that we build it in precisely this way.
Okay, right before section 3.
Okay. The hermeneutics of gift. What we mean by the word gift. If you look at now on page 180, I'm going to look about halfway down the first paragraph. Actually, about 5-6 lines up from the bottom of the first paragraph. As an action of God, creation thus means not only calling from nothing to existence and establishing the world's existence as well as man's existence in the world, but, according to the first account, it also signifies gift, a fundamental and radical gift, that is, an act of giving in which the gift comes into being precisely from nothing. All right, so gift now becomes the word to describe God's action in creation, the why behind creation, all about gift. And you'll see this is so key, especially when it comes to relationships, especially in marriage. And we'll see in the language of the body, the spousal meaning of the body. And if you drop down further on page 180, about halfway down the last paragraph, in the account of the creation of the visible world, giving has meaning only in relation to man. And the whole work of creation is only about him that one can say a gift has been granted. The visible world has been created for him. The biblical creation accounts offers us sufficient reasons for such an understanding and interpretation. Creation is a gift because man appears in it, who as an image of God is able to understand the very meaning of the gift in the call from nothing to existence. He also is able to respond to the Creator with the language of this understanding. When one interprets the creation account precisely with this language, one can deduce from it that creation constitutes the fundamental and original gift. Man appears in creation as the one who has received the world as a gift, and vice versa. One can only say that the world has received man, as one can also say that the world has received man as a gift. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is the language of liturgy, Eucharist. Remember, what we're doing is learning to put back on our sacramental liturgical worldview glasses. In liturgy, what do we do? Think of some of the words. What happens in Eucharist? The priest says, Father, we have these what to offer? Remember, work of human hands, yes. In other words, in Eucharist, the whole world, the whole earth, including ourselves and Christ himself, is being offered to the Father. This is a liturgical action. All of the world is seen as gift that we offer it back. What is the nature of gift? The very nature of gift is it's freely given, freely received. That's why, if you notice little children, little babies, I love doing this. I love putting their finger in my hand. I'll put my finger in their hand, rather. And you notice how they'll grip your hand, little babies, infants? They'll grip it. Everything is about bringing things to themselves, clinging, holding on. As we go through life, we have to learn, physically and psycho-spiritually, to release the grip, to open it, so that we go through life like this, which means something can come in, something can go out. That's the key. If we start to revert and start to close in and clamp, that's where we go down the road of unhappiness. Because this is where we stop to live as gift. The nature of gift is it comes in and it goes. It is given and received completely freely. So creation is a gift, and we offer that up to God. But it was also given as gift to man, to the human person. This is liturgy. This is Eucharist. This is sacrament. This is a return to the sacramental worldview. If I can say anything to you at all, that's what I would want to say. Once we return to the sacramental liturgical worldview that Adam had before the fall, that we experience in liturgy, in Eucharist, that is echoed in the mystics, saints, in monasticism, in Christ's words, "Blessed are the poor in heart, for they shall see God." When we return to that, that's the key to our happiness. Especially in the area of human relationships. Okay. The last paragraph there. At this point, we must interrupt our analysis. What we have said so far stands in the strictest relation with the whole anthropological problematic at the beginning. Man appears in it as created, that is, as the one who, in the midst of the world, has received the other human being as a gift. And what follows is precisely this dimension of gift that we must subject to a profound analysis in order to understand also the meaning of the body in its right measure. All right, so let's look a little more at this unfolding of the word gift and the spousal meaning of the body. Let's go to page 182. Great paragraph at the top. In this way, does somebody else want to read? Want to read it? Is that okay?
You have the microphone.
Okay. In this way, when these two expressions, that is, the adjective alone and the noun help, seem truly to be the key for understanding the essence of the gift on the level of man, is the existential content inscribed in the truth and the image of God. In fact, the gift reveals, so to speak, a particular characteristic of personal existence, or even of the very essence of the person. Ooh, did you catch that? The gift reveals, so to speak, a particular characteristic of personal existence, or even of the very essence of the person. When God Yahweh says it is not good that man should be alone, he affirms that alone the man does not completely realize his essence. He realizes it only by existing with someone, and, put even more deeply and completely, by existing for someone. Oh, great words. This norm of existing as a person is demonstrated in Genesis as a characteristic of creation precisely by the meaning of these two words, alone and help. They point out how fundamental and constitutive the relationship and the communion of persons is for man. Communion of persons means living in a reciprocal for, in a relationship of reciprocal gift. And this relationship is precisely the fulfillment of man's original solitude. Oh boy, that's great stuff. Nope. See, the word reciprocal, very important. The reciprocal circuit of love. All about gift. I give myself as gift, and I receive you as gift. It's reciprocal. The way to be happy in life, the way to have our legitimate needs met, emphasis on legitimate needs met, which is what helps us become fulfilled, is to live the spirituality of gift, to move out from ourselves towards the good of the other, or others. This is the only way, see, love, personal fulfillment, is by nature reflexive. You don't get fulfilled unless you seek the fulfillment of others. It is impossible. It is impossible to become fulfilled if you're not fulfilled. It's because in some way, some degree, we are not living this spirituality of giftedness. We're not living it deeply enough, faithfully enough. Now, we're in a fallen world, of course, so we cannot be ever totally fulfilled. But we can be basically pretty fulfilled in this life. But only by means of seeking this reciprocity. See, this is part of what's behind the evil, as it were, the error of contraception. Because contraception is about living, in a sense, the opposite direction of this reciprocity. It's a holding back, it's a looking more inward first rather than outward to the other. And we can never, ever reach relational fulfillment unless we live this cycle, the circuit of reciprocity. And the reason why we know that is true, as we'll see in the whole point of theology of the body, is because our bodies tell us so. Our bodies determine that fact. Our bodies say, I am designed to live not just with the other, but for the other. For whom do I live? As a celibate priest. For whom do I live? Yes. Yes, collectively, even male and female, collectively, you are my bride. I must live spousally my priesthood as a celibate. If I do, it brings fulfillment. If I don't, in its worst scenario, it results in what is known as the clergy sex abuse scandal. Yes.
Would you say that the married priesthood is like a double symbol in a sense? Because there's the priest in the church and then there's the actual marriage?
Good question, sister. Yeah, I come from a long line of married priests. My grandfather was a priest, great-grandfather, etc., etc. So I owe my existence, and many other people with the name Loya, and my mother's side owe their existence to married priests. Because, of course, we had them in the Eastern churches. But we also have celibates. So it's a very good question about a married priest. A married priest, as you're saying, sister, yes, doesn't have two wives. You know, he's not married to two wives. He's basically living spousally on two levels. He's living the sacramental spousal mystery, but he's also living the spousal mystery mystically. In other words, and we'll down the line we can get much further into this. There is celibacy subsists in marriage. Celibacy subsists in marriage. Marriage subsists in celibacy. So, a married priest is living sacramentally on that level, but at the same time, he's living eschatologically. There's a celibate dimension to married priesthood. So the married priest lives spousally, yes, basically on two levels. However, the one that has preeminence is the eschatological level. In other words, a celibate level. He is first and foremost married to, espoused to the bride, the church. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
This is changing in a little bit. Do you relate to your parishioners as children? Because we call the priest father.
Yes, both. And that's a very good question, because remember, there's oftentimes a couple levels of analogies going on at the same time. just as the greatest depiction of this is Jesus on the cross. Jesus says to his mother, what?
Hold your son.
Woman. Yeah, doesn't call her mother, just like at the wedding in Cana. This was a spousal level he was relating to her on, mystically speaking. But she was also his earthly mother, of course. So there's a kind of a bi-level there of imagery, of reality. So yes, I relate to my parishioners as both spouse and also father. Just as many of you do. You have multi-levels of relationships. Just like a father who coaches a baseball team, little league team or something, and it's a boys' league. His son may be on that team, So his father is coach, and he's also father. So we can function on. Because remember, these are you can function on more than one level. Yes.
Well, I just was confused because sometimes when you're in a marital relationship and you parent your spouse, it's different. It's kind of, you get pushback from that.
Oh, that's
resistance.
Right. That's a little something different. That is actually a dysfunctional situation, right? The difference is in that situation, you have a spouse who is relating to another spouse out of a need for to be parented, and the other spouse is responding either not as a parent, they want to be spouse, so there's a conflict, or they're enabling by responding as parent. They're supposed to respond, in that relationship, they're supposed to respond as spouse. In my situation, I am spouse and parent. And brother, but mostly parent and spouse. No, that's how it's supposed to be. In a marital relationship, when someone's parenting a spouse, it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be strictly spousal. Yeah. Yes, right. Her vocation. The priest-wife vocation, again, coming from that tradition, I can tell you that the priest's wives tended to come from priest families. It was a bit of almost like a vocation. There was they were not just any girl. They were a girl that usually understood the life, either grew up as a priest's daughter, or close to that, granddaughter, or sister or something. And her role is very much one of spiritual mother of the community. In fact, they even have they actually have names for her, like Matushka and Pani. These are words they're like Russian and Slavic words that mean, they're words, there's a title of almost like honor, nobility, like a spiritual mother title. So she was seen as kind of the spiritual mother of the community. And that's oftentimes how they function. She was one of the sisters, but one of the mothers, the mother at the same time. Supportive of. See, where you had a system. So you have to remember about married priests. Being a married priest is not about a priest who happens to be married to a woman. And if we go down that route, we're going to be in trouble, because that's not what it's like. That's not what it's about. It's about the woman sharing in supportive of the role of her husband. That's why they came from priest families generally. And she was seen very much as the spiritual mother, assisting the spiritual father in the care and ministry of the parish family. So Anyway, all your questions could be summed up with this idea that we live spousally. We must always live spousally, whether sacramentally married, single, celibate. And the key to spousal is gift, that word gift. That's the only way we're going to be happy. If we're not happy, somehow the spousal thing isn't happening. Or not enough of it is, or whatever. Okay, down at the, let's see, let's go on to page 183. Now this is one of those quotes, a very important quote here. It's halfway down the paragraph 4, number 4, on page 183. The body which expresses femininity for masculinity. Ooh, now there's a good one for the same-sex marriage issue. Did you catch that? The body which the body expresses femininity for masculinity, and vice versa. Masculinity for femininity. That's why we say there is no such thing as quote-unquote homosexuality. There is no such thing as a homosexual. That's a term of recent usage, by the way, and it's a very insensitive term. Very insensitive to label people. We don't use those terms here, if you notice. We use terms like person and gift. Our bodies are made for the other person. Doesn't matter what you feel inside. Doesn't matter what you think in your head. The body doesn't lie. The body is universal to everyone, and the body is what it is. And it says, I am made for the other person. That's it. You cannot alter that truth. Doesn't matter what you feel, what your attraction is. That's a whole other subject to deal with. The body says, I am made for the other person, the other gender. This concept here is one of the most, when you unpack this, it's one of the most effective, compassionate, sensitive things you can do for anyone who's dealing with same-sex attraction. Anything less than unpacking this concept, this principle, is insensitive. Okay, the body expresses femininity for masculinity and vice versa, masculinity for femininity. Manifests the reciprocity, there's that word, and the communion of persons. Boy, this is loaded. It expresses it through gift. Oh man, just pow, pow. As the fundamental characteristic of personal existence. Jeez, I can't take this. I have to take some coffee. Override. All right. It expresses it through gift as a fundamental characteristic of personal existence. This is the body, a witness to creation as a fundamental gift, and therefore a witness to love as a source from which this same giving springs. Masculinity, femininity, namely sex, is the original sign of a creative donation, at the same time the sign of a gift that man, male, female, becomes aware of as a gift lives, so to speak, in an original way. This is the meaning with which sex enters into the theology of the body. In other words, sex is about gift. Okay, let's go into page 185. Now this is one of those other great quotes that should be memorized. This is in the section on the freedom of the gift. See, the freedom of the gift is this. Adam and Eve, Adam sees Eve, right? And he launches into Shakespearean poetry, right? Launches into a prayer. All right. So he's naturally very attracted, very impressed by her, and she by him. The two become one, fruitful, become one flesh. Their attraction was unencumbered by what we know today as lust, or just sheer drive or objectivity. They were free. They freely gave and received their gift of their sexuality, of their personhood to one another. There was no objectifying, there was no lust, there was no possessing, there was no obsessing. They were free. So he talks about the freedom of the gift. And down in the halfway down the last, on page 185, halfway down that last paragraph, this begins something that should be memorized. One can say that created by love, that is endowed in their being with masculinity and femininity, both are naked, because they are free with the very freedom of the gift. This freedom lies exactly at the basis of the spousal meaning of the body. The human body with its sex, its masculinity and femininity, seeing the very mystery of creation, is not only a source of fruitfulness and of procreation, as in the whole natural order, but contains from the beginning the spousal attribute, that is, the power to express love. Precisely that love in which the human person becomes a gift, and through this gift fulfills the very meaning of his being and existence. We recall here the text of the most recent council, in which it declares that man is the only creature in the visible world that God willed for its own sake, adding that this man cannot fully find himself except through a sincere gift of self. Now let's go down a little further, halfway down the next paragraph. Here we mean freedom from all. Here we mean freedom of all as self-mastery, self-dominion. Under this aspect, self-mastery is indispensable in order for man to be able to give himself. In order for him to become a gift, in order for him, referring to the words of the council, to be able to find himself fully through a sincere gift of self. In this way, the words "they were naked but did not feel shame" can and should be understood as the revelation, together with the discovery of the freedom that makes possible and qualifies the spousal meaning of the body. Okay, translated. Translated, two things that we hate in our culture, which is why we're unhappy. The two things that make this the means to happiness. You have to first be able to possess yourself in order to give yourself away. We're saying that you living spousally, making a gift of self to another is how we're ultimately going to be happy. But you can't give what you don't have. If you're not self-possessed, in other words, you don't understand yourself, the why behind who you are, and your sexuality and something like that, you cannot give it away, adequately. Secondly, what helps us to become self-possessed is the very thing that we really abhor in our culture, and that is discipline. Freedom comes through discipline. We think that's a contradiction, but it's not. We're only free to the degree that we are boundaried and disciplined. How many of you play an instrument? Okay. Now, in order for you to play that, what do you have to do? Practice, practice, practice. Yeah, to play well, practice, practice. Which means you have to say no to a whole slew of other things you'd rather be doing, right? But when you do that, guess what? You sit down at the piano and you amaze your friends, right? You have the freedom to play music, but only by way of discipline. You can give a gift of your playing only because you have first possessed yourself. The very foundational principle that totally flies in the face of most of what our culture tells us. Okay, I think we can find. Let's go to let's see. on page 188. That paragraph is number 4. The human body, oriented from within by the sincere gift of the person, reveals not only its masculinity or femininity on the physical level, but reveals also such a value and such a beauty that it goes beyond the simply physical level of sexuality. In this way, the consciousness of the meaning of the body linked with man's masculinity and femininity is in some sense completed. Down, and then now at the bottom, the last sentence of the last paragraph in the section. At that time, as read Genesis 2:25, the man and the woman did not feel shame. The biblical expression "did not feel" directly points to experience as a subjective dimension. Okay, so what he's saying here is that our gender stamped in our body reveals not only our sexuality physically, but it reveals the fact that we can make ourselves a gift as a person. It reveals our personhood. That what it means to be human is found precisely in the fact that we're sexual, that we're gendered. But the very meaning of being human is read in the language of our sexuality, of our masculine and femininity, which means, by the fact that we're gendered, why are we gendered? Why aren't we all men? Why are we not all women?
Because we're made in the image of God.
Yeah, it's precisely through the gender. The gender is what tells you, oh, like if you were a man from Mars, and presumably if there's life out there, it's got to be smarter than us, right? So the smart person from Mars looks at us, looks at the human person, and says, because they're so smart, oh, look, a man and a woman. The human person is about giving themselves to each other. How do we know that? Because we look at them, and their bodies fit together. That must mean they're meant to be together, to give of themselves to each other. And as Sister said, yes, this is precisely what makes us most like God. Why? Because that's what God did to us. That's what God does within Himself, within the Trinity. The union and communion of persons in love. Yes?
What would you say about hermaphrodites? The exception to the...
Yeah, that often comes up. Okay, well, first of all, the exception doesn't change the created order of things, because it's precise that. It's an exception. It's something we'll call a disorder. Disorder simply means, it's not a bad word, an insensitive word. Disorder simply means, look at it more objectively, out of the order of things. Here's the basic order of things. The DNA of the created order is the spousal mystery. It's the male-female principle. It's something initiating, something receiving. Reciprocity. You see it everywhere. What lights up the moon at night? The sun, yeah. What is that? Giving and reciprocity, and giving back, right? Okay. The water comes into the shore. Shore receives it, pushes it back out. Reciprocity. Okay, so that's the DNA of the created order. Something can develop out of that order, which doesn't change the veracity, the unchangingness of the created order. The second thing about that is, it's, even in those cases, my understanding is that you are primarily more so one than the other. We tend to think of hermaphrodite as a person who's perfectly evenly male and female. My understanding is that's not the case. Thirdly, no matter what you are, live spousally. In other words, live to make a gift of yourself to the other. Because this is what being human means. And it's stamped in our body, even if you are a hermaphrodite. Well, gender means that. Whether gender is perfectly, nicely complementary, whether it's sort of confused in a person, gender by its nature means that. It means for the other, and they for me. That's why everybody has to be married. Everybody has to be espoused to be happy. You have to be living spousally. Celibate nuns here, celibate priests, we're just married in a different way, in an eschatological and mystical way. We still have to live that way, and if we don't, that's not going to be happy. It's not going to make any sense. That's why celibacy doesn't make sense in our culture. Because they just say it's excess baggage. What's this stupid thing? You got to give up all this stuff for what? That's the only way they see it. Because they don't understand why we're human. They don't understand our society is not sexual enough. They got to get more sexual. Did you get that? Is the camera here?
Yeah.
Okay.
The mic is very loud.
Oh. Get more sexual. We're completely undersexed in our culture. Now, of course, I mean those words differently than what you think. I mean what they really mean. It means be more human, more genuinely human. Be more, translated sexual, translated, be more sexual. Be more and more in the image and likeness of God. Yes.
Say like if someone like a single vocation, like if your vocation is to be single, how do you live spousally?
Well, first of all, the church says that singleness is not a vocation. The reason is because vocation, by its nature, remember, something is always ordered, right, a certain way, and that's how you get the truth of things. Singleness, by its nature, is not ordered to permanence. The word vocation, this is why, again, when you put on your theology body glasses, what happens is you get this x-ray vision about words. You start to really see right through anything that's not exactly honest about words, and that's the key. That's the key. Vocation means a permanency. So singleness, by its nature, by what it really is not ordered to permanent. It always has a certain open-endedness to it. So to be single is not in itself a vocation. It may be what a person remains the rest of their life for whatever reason. But to answer your question, the important thing though is they too must live spousally. They must see how in their life, in every way in their life, they can live to be gift to another or others. And then their singleness has a lot of witness to it, a lot of fruitfulness to it. I don't believe that we're single for any good. We don't remain single for any good reason. It's not our fault. The reason why many people remain single today, perhaps even their whole life, is not because they're called to that. There's a variety of reasons why. I think that when you really look at them, none of them are actually good. The reasons why. Now, it doesn't mean a single person's not good. They can be a saint. You can be the best person on earth. But the reason for their singleness can be explained in basically the fallen side of our reality. Example, a good woman who wants to make a gift of herself probably has a hard time today, I think, right, ladies? A harder time today finding a man who lives this spirituality, right? Like the teenagers in my parish told me I ruined dating. My teenage girls told me I ruined dating for them because once they learned this, I taught this, they can only date theology body guys, and they're very rare. and it's good because they're not going to marry a guy who's not a theology body guy, because these girls are willing to make a gift to themselves, understand what they're after and all that, what they're about. And if he's not going to be that way, well, so they'll wait and hope and that the theology body guy will come along. But in our culture, they're rare, right? Because men aren't raised to be theology body guys. Yeah.
Father, we have a question from online. Can't singleness be a calling to serve God in the world in a special manner?
Not the singleness itself. You may be called as a person to serve God, but your singleness, in other words, it's almost like a way of redeeming or making fruitful, sacramentalizing, in a sense, your singleness. It may be called to that work, but it's not in itself, your singleness itself is not a vocation. You still live it spousally, and you still may be called to great things. But your singleness in and of itself is not a vocation.
Is that because the single state can always be changed?
Yes, exactly, precisely. It doesn't have the mark of permanence to it, whereas a vocation does. Notice marriage is supposed to be permanent. Celibate marriage is permanent. In fact, for priests, ordination is an indelible mark on you forever. But singleness, you're right. By its nature, again, it's like this by nature can always receive something or pour something out, because it's right now in its state is it's open-ended. But let's say this was on here, permanently, whatever. Okay, it's no longer open-ended. So singleness always kind of has that open-endedness, so it can be changed. You're right. It does not have the permanency by its nature. Yes.
So, someone who is consecrated lay, is that not the same as singleness?
No. Once you consecrate, then you've stepped into more of a vocation, a spousal, because consecration is permanent, right? Yeah. That's the nature of the word. Consecrate means to be cut away. You're reserved, like you've been. Yes.
In other words, we're made to live in a covenant no matter what our particular state in life. It's almost like defined covenantally.
Yes, it is. That's a very close word to spousally. Yes, it is. Because covenant, what is covenant? Covenant is commitment, it's giving of self, and it calls for faithfulness, and it's fruitful.
And explicit too.
Yes. Yes.
You mentioned earlier that you need to discipline yourself in order to really make a gift of yourself to whatever your vocation is. What does that? I'm curious as to what that means in terms of, on a mental and emotional and physical level. The Proverbs say, "Discipline your heart. It's your greatest treasure," or something like that. And my assumption is in discipline, it's purity of the mind, purity of heart. But is there anything beyond that you mean?
But that's primarily what it is. Now, we discipline ourselves naturally. We function on several levels, emotionally, intellectually. You have to be disciplined fully. Always think of, we're a composite, we're integrated. So you need discipline on all levels. But primarily, it's a discipline, yes, of the heart, of looking with what he calls, the peace, the interior gaze. In other words, looking at your view. It's like your desires do not control you. They inspire, motivate you, but they don't control you. They don't exert a power over you. That's what the freedom of the gift is that he was talking about. Adam and Eve looked at each other naked without shame. There was no lust. There was no, lust lust is when we allow a power to come over us. Concupiscence. It's the power of the passions, as it were, overcome us, become more powerful than us. They sort of drive us. Whereas freedom means we are not driven or dominated by anything. We're not. We look at life, we look at one another, especially male and female, with that purity of heart, that peace, interior gaze, that sacramental liturgical worldview. And now, because of what John Paul II calls historical man, original sin, we have to, unfortunately, to get that discipline, we have to kind of war against ourselves, as it were. Whereas Adam and Eve had it naturally before the fall. It's natural to being human, is to be free. Be free, meaning that their love, their eros, their, as we would call it, their sexual attraction, their sexual drive, was not out of order. It didn't drive them. It didn't dominate them. It didn't cause them to look at each other as lustfully or as objectifying. It was pure. It was about gift, and so they were free. They were free to always see each other with that loving gaze, a gaze that this is a person, this is a compliment to me, this is gift to me, I am gift to her, her to me. We have to kind of war against ourselves to achieve that. But that's where we get the freedom. Example. I think I may have told you, because I was, for several years of my life, for several days a week, for several hours a day, I used to look at naked people right in front of me, live naked people. For several years of my life, for several days a week, for several hours a day. Live, naked people right in front of me. I was an art student. And you draw the human body. You draw live models. That's how you learn to be an artist. Now, I could do that because I'm an artist with the complete freedom of looking at the human body for what you're supposed to see in it as an artist. It is possible. My artistic temperament and striving and discipline gives me the freedom to look at the human body that way. I use this a lot when I work with men, especially with lust and pornography. They can't imagine it. They just cannot imagine you can do that. And, to top it off, mind you, I'm an 18, 19, 20, 20-year-old hormonal guy. And I'm looking at the naked human body, mostly women, with the peace interior gaze. What gives you the ability to do that? What gives artists the ability to do that? Well, they are free. They have a freedom because they're seeing that not as others would see it. They're seeing in it the elements of beauty. They're seeing it for what it is and trying to master that. And that discipline, and it's the hardest thing to do. That's why you draw the human body, because the human body is the apex of all beauty. So artists try to master the human body, because if you can do that, you can do anything. So there's a great discipline. That's why I did it for a year. I did all my art school. That's what you do in art school for years. You just keep painting and drawing. I mean, you do a lot of other things, but that's always the mainstay. You're going to take a painting class, learn to paint. You're going to paint the naked body. You're going to try drawing class. You're going to draw the naked body. Sculpture class. You're going to sculpt the naked body. Discipline, discipline, discipline that frees you to see the naked body, as John Paul II said here, as revealing the glory of God. But without that discipline, you're not going to be able to look at it. You're going to be overcome with lust. And you're not going to be free. You would have to do like the age-old advice of custody of the eyes. Look away, look away, look away. The person has to look away to have a period of heart. If that's all they do, they are not free. They are not free. John Paul II never mentioned that word, custody of the eyes. His whole thing was look at, but with the sacramental liturgical worldview glasses. That's your freedom. Yes.
Thomas A. Kempis, Imitation of Christ, there's a section on discipline about how the Carthusian monks get up and pray at 5.
Mm-hmm.
And just comparing what a lay person's lifestyle is, like you get to it later. Whereas when you're living in community, you have discipline because you have a director, someone that you have to answer. We don't really have I don't think lay people or singles have any sort of obedience.
Yeah.
We're our own boss, pretty much. You want coffee, you go to Starbucks. You want this, you go there. There's just such instant gratification.
Yes, there is. What you're saying, you hit your fingers on something really huge, actually. It's about living in a sacramental liturgical Catholic culture versus a non-sacramental secular one, non-Catholic one. The non-Catholic one, the latter, sends us into things like individualism and relativism and so on, narcissism. The Catholic culture sends us into community. And that's why, a long time ago in Catholic cultures, even lay people lived a life that was in some way similar to monastics. There was a great deal of daily piety in their lives. Many times they were, humble farmers that lived close to the land. They had a real spirituality. There was a church always nearby in the villages. They would go to church. There was a more of a sense, more of an element of the monastic in the life of the lay person a long time ago in Catholic cultures. And that kind of piety and so on, that connecting, what you do with your work and creation, was the lay of the land. In our times, it's the opposite. And so, single people are encouraged to be, narcissistic, really.
But there's like no parameters to hold you, there's no
Right.
obedience part, and that's part
Right,
of spiritual growth,
exactly.
is having obedience. There's no one to answer to.
Precisely, yes. That's why we should create, that's why the Order of Franciscans and things like that, the church has attempts to bring that into the lives of lay people, and that's why we should all be living in Catholic communities, we should revamp the whole culture. And I will not stop until the whole world is Catholic. I am here to impose my religion on everybody. You get that on the internet? I'm not PC, I'm BC. Biblically correct, my case, Byzantine Catholic correct. And after all, what part of love and community and forgiveness and justice and prosperity and equality do you not want imposed on you? I don't have to impose it, it's self-imposing. You just have to live it. It's self-imposing, because it's about being human. It's about being honestly human. To be Catholic is to be human. That's the real definition of being Catholic. Catholic is not a religion. Catholic is not an institution. Catholic is not a religion. Catholic is not an institution. Catholic means, very simply, the truth about being human. And that's why I want everyone to be Catholic. Because then they will be fully human. And that's the only way they will be. It's true. Because what is being human about? The invisible made visible through the physical. Isn't that what we are as humans? Do we not make visible through the body the invisible God? Right there. That's Catholic, that's human. Sacramental. There's a true life of the Trinity that is made visible through we who are made in that image and likeness. That's Catholic. That's why Eucharist is the source and summit of our existence. It's the central sacrament, because that's what that's all about, making visible the invisible through the physical. That's all. That's theology of the body. Theology is what? God, right? The Word of God, the study of God, of the body. Body makes God visible, tangible. You can feel Him, taste Him, touch Him. That's Catholic. It's human. And we have a fundamental desire to make visible what is invisible. That's why we get birthday cakes on birthdays. Fly flags on civil holidays, and shoot off fireworks on 4th of July. We have a fundamental need to make visible invisible realities. And that's what Catholicism is. It's about being human.
Father, could you say, going back to that we're really called to marriage, we're all called to marriage, to give of ourselves spousally, and certainly called to be married to God here and then and whatever. Could you also say everybody's called to celibacy too? Because you were saying like celibacy subsists in marriage?
Everyone is called to celibacy. That's why in the end you'll see John Paul, when we finally get further, he basically says, you ready for this one? Oh golly, if there's any teenagers watching, you'll be so disappointed. Heaven is going to be, according to John Paul II, the Theology of the Body, heaven will be perpetual virginity. Perpetual virginity, yes. What does that mean? Precisely what Sister is saying. Virginity doesn't mean you didn't have sex and you're this pure and holy person. Virginity means total oneness and intactness and union with God. Total openness to God. Completely intact, completely one, openness to God. And that is the ultimate goal and destiny of each and every one of us. That's why we say things like, till death do us part. Or there's no marriage in heaven. At least not marriage as we know it here. Because we belong ultimately to God. And only God can ultimately fulfill us. That's the sister saying, that's the celibate dimension of our lives. See, okay, think Catholic now. Catholic means two things that coexist together. We're used to thinking celibacy, virginity. Ooh, marriage, sex, love, intimacy. Yeah. We like this, or you don't want that. That's wrong. The truth is they're together. One subsists in the other. Marriage on this earth is a foretaste of what's going to be the marriage in heaven, where we belong ultimately, each one of us individually, ultimately to God. Only God ultimately satisfies us. The marriage is just like a little sort of experience, that taste of that, foretaste of that on this earth. That's why Christ talked about no marriage in heaven. Now in the East we say, we don't say till death do you part, we say till death unite you forever. Meaning, if you are united in Christ, Christ of course is the God of the living and the dead, so you're united forever, even in the next life. But not exclusively. So that's the difference. So the East and West say the same thing. When the West says no death, no marriage in heaven till death do you part, it's saying the same thing as the East is saying, only East is saying in a different way. The idea is that in marriage in heaven there is marriage, but not exclusive marriage as we know it here. In heaven, we're all married to each other and ultimately to the Lamb, to God. In Revelations, marriage is the wedding feast of the Lamb. It is heaven. So, yes, celibacy, we ultimately all belong to God. And that's what I remind about sisters when they are here, especially when they're wearing their habits. And not trying to say this in a sense of liberal, conservative, conservative. I'm just saying, literally, when you see that sign, it's supposed to be, it's telling us, it's reminding us that we ultimately all belong to God. And only in God will we find our fulfillment. So yes, the celibate dimension subsists in marriage. And vice versa. Celibates must live spousally. Married people must realize that celibacy is part of their marriage. In fact, it's what the best. I always tell married couples, if you want to be happily married couples, you should qualify as good monks. The best celibates make the best married people. The best married people would make the best celibates. The two go two sides of the same coin. Do not separate them. Very non-Catholic. Bring them back together. Very Catholic. Catholic is integrated. Catholic is good. Catholic is the best. Catholic is the only way. Catholic is being human. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay, let's go. How about, there's a couple other really salient quotes. 189. Okay, now this is one of the quotes in the Theology of the Body. On page 189, the second last paragraph, about halfway down. Okay, this spousal meaning is also beatifying, and as such, it definitely shows the whole reality of the act of giving about which the first page of Genesis speak to us. Reading them convinces us that the consciousness of the meaning of the body deriving from this gift, in particular, now here's the haymaker, the consciousness of the spousal meaning of the body constitutes the fundamental component of human existence in the world. You have to memorize that. You have to. That's one of those that you just hang your hat on. One can understand the spousal meaning of the human body only in the context of the person. The body has a spousal meaning because the human person, as the Council says, is a creature that God will for his own sake, and at the same time cannot fully find himself except through the gift of self. See, the spousal meaning of the body constitutes the fundamental component of human existence. You realize what he's saying there? The fundamental element, that's the DNA of human existence, is the spousal meaning of our bodies. That's why we have no choice. It's like we can't change our DNA. We can't change the fact that we are designed to live spousally. You should mark that in your book. That quote's got to be memorized. Okay. Let's see, if we move on, we'll go to we're going to jump a little bit to page 196. 197. The second paragraph, that's number 5. Genesis 2, 23-25, this is on 186, paragraph 5, allows us to deduce that due to the original innocence, the woman who in the midst of creation is given by the Creator of the man is welcomed and or accepted by him as a gift. The biblical text is completely clear and transparent at this point. At the same time, the acceptance of the woman by the man, the very way of accepting her, become, as it were, a first gift, in such a way that the woman, giving herself, from the very first moment in which, in the midst of creation, she has been given by the Creator of the man, at the same time discovers herself. Thanks to the fact that she has been accepted and welcomed, thanks to the way in which she has been received by the man. She therefore finds herself in her own gift of self through a sincere gift of self. When she has been accepted in the way in which the Creator willed her, namely for her own sake, through her humanity and femininity, she comes to the innermost depth of her own person and to the full possession of herself, when, in this acceptance, the whole dignity of the gift is ensured to the offer for which she is in the whole truth of her humanity and the whole reality of her body and her sex of her femininity. Translated, once again, we find the meaning of our existence, especially as male and female, based on this whole point we've been saying tonight, this reciprocity of giving and receiving, seeing each other's gift, receiving each other's gift. This is why we find our identity. We find our identity in relation to the other. A man's manhood only makes sense in relation to womanhood. And when he is received by woman as that, as such, in his manhood as gift, he then can become gift to her, she to him. It's very, very reflexive. Always think of reflexive or reciprocal. If I move out to you, it comes back to me. It's the only way it can come back to me if I move to you. Okay. There's another quote I want to have you look at, since time's getting short here. We're going to take a big long break this summer, right? Another one of those great quotes to memorize is on page 203. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is in point number 4, paragraph 4 on page 203. Thus, in this dimension, a primordial sacrament is constituted, understood as a sign that efficaciously transmits in the visible world the invisible mystery hidden in God from eternity. And this is the mystery of truth and love, the mystery of divine life, in which man really participates. In the history of man, it is original innocence that begins this participation and is also the source of original happiness. The sacrament, as a visible sign, is constituted with man as much as he is a body, through his visible masculinity and femininity. Okay, now here comes the big one. The body, in fact, and only the body, is capable of making visible what is invisible, the spiritual and the divine. It has been created to transfer into the visible reality of the world the mystery hidden from eternity in God, and thus to be a sign of it. That is one of the most salient quotes in all the theology of the body. In man, created in the image of God, the very sacramentality of creation, the sacramentality of the world, was thus in some way revealed. See, there goes that sacramental liturgical worldview glasses. The sacramentality of the world.
In other words, creation would not have been manifest as well, gift of God if there hadn't been someone to image it fully in themselves and receive that.
Right, and receive it. Exactly. That's what he said earlier. We read it earlier tonight. He's exactly what he said. He said that the world becomes gift precisely because man is in it. And man becomes gift to the world. The world becomes gift to man. You know, think of it. Think of if you're as you're growing up, you're forming your outlook on life, your spirituality, or raising children. Don't you think it would change the world if people had, that this was a child and a teenager and a young adult's fundamental worldview? That my body is sacrament, my body makes visible what is invisible, and we are designed to be gift to each other. How do you think that would affect human relationships? Male-female relationships. Think of so-called marriage problems, which, by the way, there are no such thing as that. There's only problems in the theology of the body. Who man is for woman, woman is for man. When they don't understand each other as gift, they don't understand this reciprocal principle, what are they left with? Using each other, and getting angry with each other, and fighting. You know, you ask people today, what's your basic worldview of marriage? What is marriage? What is male-female relation? What is it all about? Why are you married? Why are you attracted? The question of why is the key to everything. That's the only way you know how. Why do we exist, male and female? We exist because we define ourselves in relation to the other in the process of mutual giftedness. It's very open-handed, like I said earlier. It's very towards the other. It's like this. Here, put your hand up. Like, push it against my hand. Okay, now, if I push against her hand, she pushes against mine, and we keep pushing towards each other, this is impenetrable. This will stand forever, won't it? This is strong. Now, what if I become Mr. Selfish, Mr. Egocentric? I'm going to start to move in my direction. What's going to happen? It collapses. But as long as we move towards each other, it will stand forever and stand strong. Simple as that. Thank you. That's the theology of it right there. I receive my needs, I am supported, I am strengthened by only to the degree that I move towards the other, and they towards me. Now we're not talking about victimization here either, of being we're talking about, again, being a self-possessed person doing this to self-possessed people. All right, let's see.
You know, kind of on that line, Father, I was remembering today a story I heard, and the way it was told, it was pretty much kind of indicating that a woman who doesn't have access to birth control, it really is in a terrible state. And this story, it was a true story of a woman in a Latin American country who was going for help with a 10th pregnancy. And it was a Catholic mission, and the person who was running the mission said, but, you know, haven't you've been taught, and your husband knows about the body cycles and, you know, give and take with each other, and And she said, but if I don't give in to my husband, he'll leave me with the children and go after a woman who will give in to him. And, you know, the excuse, well, the story was told to say, see, this poor woman needs birth control, instead of saying, this poor woman has a husband who doesn't love her.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, contraception is not the problem here.
Right. Exactly.
It's the relationship is that is pitiful.
Precisely. That's exactly it.
And just, I think a lot of people's decisions or their perspectives are driven by situations like this, but the real problem is not access to a chemical or
Right.
a device.
Right. See, that's always, again, the shortcut, the counterfeit solution, the so-called pragmatic, practical solution. That's always the one that's easiest to reach for. And what we have to do is as you're doing, sister, is you have to, again, you call out the honesty, go for the honesty principle. Let's really look at what the real situation is. The real situation is the thing that is not so easy and expedient to solve. It takes more. It's about the relationship. So it's not in always the seemingly pragmatic, practical solution. Rather, it's in, again, it's always the theology of the body. Answer to all life's questions. It truly is. Maybe sometime we'll play Stump the Priest. See if we come up with a question I cannot answer through the theology of the body. Because it's a way of saying everything. So you got an answer for everything. Okay, we're just about done here. So, right, we go to 8:30, right?
Yeah, but we can see if there's any last questions from our people online. And
Yeah.
okay, people online, any last questions? We've got 3 minutes.
So we'll start now that this is all the positive, glorious stuff. Then we're going to get into the fallen side, historical man.
That'll be in September, huh?
September, yeah. You stay with us. You can read, of course.
Hey, we have somebody who wants to meet more than once a month, so
Oh, good.
we can figure some way, online. People can at least. You can always go to the Ustream.tv channel for Theology of the Body and post your own comments. It's always open for comments, and if we want to just use the comment section of the channel to exchange ideas, insights, discoveries, that might be a way for us to continue meeting. We have Bono from August Head to Heart Chorus saying hello to Sister Helena and Father Loya.
Oh, thank you.
That seems to be it from the internet, folks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was watching some talk show the other night, and they had a guy on there whose name I don't recall. But he was talking about, I guess, why men cheat, and he said that they're hardwired to have multiple whatever.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that? Because he said that he was basically saying that it's a more sophisticated way of living. Because if you look back at the history of marriage, men have traditionally had multiple wives, and so that's just the way that it's supposed to be. Or mistresses or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I roll my eyes a lot, but like, how do you respond to somebody who says, well, men are hardwired to do that?
Well, you respond. A number of ways you respond. One is you always use their own stuff against them. Right? I mean, this guy fancies himself as an expert scientist, right? Yes, well. In expert relations, yes. Well, science, true science, proves that men are hardwired for one wife. Because during intercourse, both men and women secrete from the brain bonding hormones, which tells the man he is bonded and responsible to this woman. Now those bonding hormones that are designed by God to bond one person to the other, this is why breaking up is painful, hard, because there's actually a physiological bond that happens via intercourse. This is why with teenagers, this is one of the principal reasons behind teenage suicide. When teenagers are sexually active, they bond and they break. They bond and they break, and the pain of that is too powerful for them. You know, it's like when you superglue yourself and, you know, your fingers together or something and you try to break them, you know, it hurts. So physiologically, science proves, the very brain chemistry proves that we are designed to bond with one person. Because when we break that bond, once we've been bonded, it is not a pleasant thing. It's a painful thing. Secondly, men are wired, see, he doesn't know how they're wired. Men are wired to live for, to sacrifice for, to defend, to protect a woman. They go into battle, as it were, speaking analogously. They go into battle, as it were, on behalf of the woman, the wife, the mother, the bride. Men are designed to act externally, to act upon the environment, to plant the seed. So, with the fallen side of that aspect of men, yes, it becomes easier for men to sow their seeds, as it were, to more than one person. In the fallen side, they're not hardwired to do that. It's, remember, all of our bad aspects come from our gift, whether the fallen side, the gift fallen. Okay, so every bad thing. If you want to know, I call it follow the gift trail. If you want to know why a person acts this way that's bad, the origin is in their gift. Follow the gift trail. The badness is only the gift gone awry. So when they justify that because men so easily conspire, and of course they only compare us to the animals too, which is why I had that definition. Remember the footnote tonight earlier? That's why John Paul purposely did that, because he knows that's what science do. Well, we're just like the animals. They study animals to learn about humans, you know, instead of studying humans. He was saying, study the human, you know. We're persons, they're not, right? So that's why he called it adequate anthropology, like a correct anthropology. So we are wired for monogamy, for faithfulness. We only act differently from the fallen side of the gift. And that's proven even physiologically. In fact, the hormones, in the woman it's oxytocin, and dopamine. In the man it's serotonin, serotonin prolactin. Actual specific hormones that create bonding, a sense of bonding. You can only bond to one person, because when you don't, when you break, it hurts. And that's why it hurts, because it's meant to be for one person. Yes?
I have a question about pagan religions and the temple prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
And was that a nuptial type of worship too, or is that distorted, or was that they're not understanding it?
Yeah, it's just a very, very distorted. See, the desire for you to become a unique community of persons, enter and espouse a relationship, is fundamental to all human beings since Adam and Eve. It's just that there are correct and not correct or perverted ways to achieve that. We're all looking for that. Okay, it's just that there's.
But that predated, you know, a formalized
Yeah.
religion.
Yes, yes.
You know, Pope Benedict in God is Love
Yeah.
talks about that, and he says, that's like totally from a male perspective though.
Yeah.
And the woman, what's she, chopped liver? Like,
Right.
she's his way to heaven, and
Right.
hello, what about her? What's her way to heaven, you know?
Exactly.
And I was just watching Da Vinci Code again.
No.
And they did that exact same thing. And it was like, it sounds like, oh, you're lifting women up.
Mhm.
And it's like, wait a minute. It's all from one perspective only, the male perspective.
Right.
And they never say that she's a person and she's also heaven bound and what's her way to heaven. It's
Right.
just all about,
Mhm.
and they're saying, see, the church doesn't like women because they used to be so powerful because they were the way to heaven. They still are, but you know, it's like, but it's so distorted. Like,
Well, I never knew what they
pagan stuff.
believed, but I know that
Because it sounds like it's good for women, some of this pagan stuff, and if you really
Yeah.
dissect it, it's all from a male perspective,
Oh, yeah.
objectifying women.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Also, because women became a kind of a pagan sacrament or incarnation of the fertility of creation, so they would have this cult prostitution was a way also of almost like enforcing the fertility of your crops, and you know, technically
Mhm.
keeping the life principle going on earth.
Yeah.
You know, it was a way of forcing creation to be fruitful
Mhm.
for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the woman had no, it wasn't she as a person, she was a symbol of the fruitful cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a celebration of the fertility of
Yes.
the physical order.
Mm-hmm.
But again, she was being used for that, and
Mhm.
she had no end in herself. So that's pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no more questions coming in from the internet, but we do have a reminder, if you're not already on Sister Helena's email list, to get updated when the next session is and stuff like that. People online, send us your emails or email to Sister Helena. Her address is right there. And people here can write it in a notebook. And you have all summer to read the book.
Yes.
what should we read up to? Maybe.
Oh. Golly. Yes, well, let's see.
I guess that's not really a recess then. Huh? Do you want to read up to page 364, and then that would start us off with the art thing the next time, like take that as a separate? Or is that too much?
That's too much.
Yeah.
It's 2 months.
How much is, which
Yeah,
chapter?
July and August, for July and August.
Yeah, but who's going to read all that during the summer? Wait, is that like chapter 2 or
Wanna
what?
take us to the beach?
Is it just chapter 2?
No.
What about chapter 2? How big is chapter 2?
Okay, how big is chapter 2?
Just read chapter 2.
Just chapter 2? Okay.
How many chapters are in chapter 2? 4. It's like 4 chapters.
Through 263, from 225 to 263.
Chapter 2 is up to page 263. No, right?
Oh, that's not chapter 3.
No, that's not chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 2, I think, is a huge section.
See,
Goes
this?
to 379.
Ooh.
It's only
Ooh.
3 chapters. This is a huge book. It's huge, 2 chapters are huge. Oh, yeah, she's right, chapter 2. It's too much.
Russell says hi, Father, and also Mark Foley from the Summer Institute with Christopher West,
Oh, okay, good.
the Irish guy, Bono.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's
He's
right,
there.
Bono, yeah, hello, yes, good to see you,
And
yeah.
who's Russell? You know who Russell is?
That's all.
Grigaitis. Russell, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your last name. Grigatis. Grigatis?
Oh, where's he from?
Russell, where are you from? find out
So
in a
we're gonna
minute.
read up to what page?
Oh, yeah, what page are we on? We have to.
Russell's a secular Franciscan from Edmonton,
Oh,
Alberta.
Canada. Woo!
Well, how about we?
What's the assignment? We're waiting on you.
Well, I would go up to 364.
Oh.
We could start with the hard thing.
That's huge.
But we have 2 months.
Yeah. Well, start chapter 2. How about start chapter 2?
That's too indefinite.
There's like 400
I
pages.
vote for 360.
Me too, I vote for
Okay,
it.
there's some votes for 360. Anyone, any other ideas? A good place to break?
let's see.
309? 309? That's fine. 364 is okay?
The 362 or whatever.
All right. So
Aim for
364.
362.
And it'll be the second Wednesday of September.
That's right.
Wednesday of September.
Is that blessed are the pure of heart?
Website is
Is that blessed are the pure of heart?
no.
Because Russell only has the
It
old
goes
book.
up to the appendix. It's probably in a totally different place in the old book.
Well, what's the topics?
It's the general audience of April 8, 1981.
April 15th, but then after that, it goes to Thursday.
Oh, yeah, sorry, up to the, well, see, this is in a different place in the old book. It's not in the right order.
I know, I was reading the front part of it, it's explaining it, it's so confusing.
Of what, the argument?
Well, the way they, no, just
Okay.
counting the chapters.
Yes.
It's so much explanation.
Looks like, this is like a critical scholarly edition.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I think I'm on the email list here.
You are too, what's your name?
Josh description.
Yeah,
No.
you were there for the first one.
Yes, but I didn't get the update for when the meetings changed that one time. That was me outside.
Card?
No, when they were the fourth Wednesday of the month one time for some reason.
Right.
Never got that email. But but I have to be on your list though because I think I've gotten your other emails before. So
Okay, all right.
and if not, I'll get it
As
from
long as you've
Kevin.
gotten Theology of Body emails, because I have all these.
Okay. Good. So make sure I'm on the master one.
Sterlina, are you going?
Joshua Strepsky, try the longest one.
Dina, are you going to let them down?
I'll see you down.
Okay.
Household.